The world stopped spinning the instant the titanium pitcher clinked against the crystal water glass. Elias Sterling, whose gaze typically sliced through corporate balance sheets and rarely settled on anything as insignificant as serving staff, felt the breath seize in his chest. It wasn't the weary hand that poured the water, nor the shadow of fatigue etched beneath the young waitress's eyes that held him. It was the delicate, almost antique silver pendant resting against the hollow of her collarbone. The light filtering through the panoramic window of the high-rise restaurant caught the pendant's surface, illuminating a tiny, familiar etching, the silhouette of a single soaring kingfisher. This was not merely an identical piece of jewelry. It was the piece, one of a kind, commissioned years ago for the one person whose absence had hollowed out his entire existence. For a man who controlled global markets, the sudden, visceral jolt of recognition was paralyzing, transporting him instantly from the hushed luxury of the private dining room to a rain-soaked memory of a child laughing in a garden. His mouth went dry, the taste of grief sharp and overwhelming, as the simple act of receiving a glass of water became the most profound moment of his adult life. The waitress, unaware of the seismic shift she had just caused, began to pull away her shift, ending her exhaustion, pulling her toward the exit. But his command, a raw, guttural whisper of her name, "Wait," stopped her dead in her tracks. If you believe in the transformative power of kindness, the quiet strength found in second chances, and the beautiful, unpredictable connections that life weaves between us, please hit the like button, share this story, and subscribe to Kindness of Americans. Let us know in the comments if you've ever experienced a moment of unexpected grace. Evelyn Hayes, the owner of the tired hands and the silver necklace, immediately tensed. Her fear was visceral, born of years spent surviving on the fringes of financial desperation. She hadn't heard her own name, but the intensity of the man's gaze, a terrifying mix of profound sorrow and unnerving focus, made her feel utterly exposed. She was a ghost in the background of this gilded world, meant only to deliver and retreat. Yet now she was fixed under the lens of the most powerful man in the city. Her life was an endless, grueling marathon. She worked 12-hour shifts between two different establishments, sending nearly every spare dollar home to her younger brother, who was battling a chronic illness hundreds of miles away. The small silver kingfisher pendant was her only heirloom of worth, a gift from her late grandmother, and its simple beauty was a quiet rebellion against the drudgery of her existence. She clutched the base of the pendant subconsciously, a protective gesture she had performed 1,000 times, and waited for the inevitable complaint, that the water was too cold, that the service was too slow, that she simply took up too much space in his exclusive reality. Instead, Elias Sterling, the legend of Wall Street, slowly rose from the table, his movements heavy and deliberate, like a puppet whose strings had suddenly frayed, and he moved toward her with an expression that terrified her far more than any corporate anger ever could. The air in the restaurant grew thick with unvoiced drama as he stopped just inches away, his eyes locked on the silver bird. The intricate details of the pendant, the small, almost imperceptible scratch near its wingtip, confirmed his deepest, most painful suspicion. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly, not to grasp the necklace, but to gently cup the space around it, his knuckles brushing against the starched collar of Evelyn's uniform. In a voice that was barely recognizable, stripped of all its corporate command, he finally spoke, explaining that the necklace, that very design, that specific kingfisher, had been custom-made for his daughter, Clara, on her 16th birthday. Clara, he revealed, had loved kingfishers, had seen them as symbols of good luck and swift, unexpected change. He recounted the day he'd given it to her, the joy in her eyes, the promise of a future that had been brutally truncated by a sudden, unthinkable accident 3 years prior. He described the agonizing search for solace in the years since, the foundation he built in her name, and the gnawing feeling that a part of her, the part that mattered most, had simply vanished without a trace. He ended by explaining that the pendant had vanished from her belongings shortly before the accident, adding a layer of mystery and devastation to his grief. He pleaded with Evelyn, his billionaire voice cracking with desperation, to tell him where she had found it, where the last tangible piece of his daughter's life had been hidden. Evelyn's fear instantly dissolved, replaced by a wave of crushing empathy and her own choked-up realization. She stepped back, clutching the pendant tighter, and the story she told was not one of inheritance, but of desperation and a singular act of grace. She explained that 4 years ago, before she landed this grueling job, she had been truly destitute, sleeping rough on a park bench in a distant, rain-soaked city after fleeing an abusive situation. She recalled one particularly cold, despairing morning, sitting on the bench, convinced she couldn't go on. A girl, young, radiant, despite the overcast sky, and possessing the gentlest smile Evelyn had ever seen, had approached her, offering a warm cup of coffee and a sandwich. The girl had talked about hope, about the promise the next sunrise held, and as she stood to leave, she had unclasped the necklace from her own neck. The girl said the kingfisher was a charm of hope, a reminder that the swiftest changes come after the darkest storms, and that Evelyn needed the luck more than she did. Evelyn had been too stunned to even ask the girl's name, and by the time she found her voice, the kind stranger was gone. She had never taken the necklace off, believing it was the literal anchor that pulled her through the storm and into a life where she could at least pay her way. It wasn't a legacy of gold and wealth, it was a legacy of kindness. As the story concluded, a profound silence descended upon the table, deeper and more meaningful than the earlier hushed reverence. Elias Sterling staggered back slightly, his face pale as he processed the revelation. His daughter, Clara, had not lost the necklace. She had given it. She had performed a secret act of radical, selfless kindness just hours before her life ended, fulfilling her own quiet philosophy of generosity and hope. He realized that this young woman, Evelyn, was not a stranger who happened to own an object. She was a living, breathing testament to Clara's spirit. The kingfisher was not a memory of loss, but a powerful emblem of enduring compassion, passed from his daughter's heart to a stranger's neck, where it had saved a life. All the wealth in the world could not have bought back his daughter. But here, in this humble transaction of water and silver, he found the true, invaluable measure of her life. He saw Evelyn, not as a tired waitress, but as a vessel of his daughter's final, beautiful wish. In that moment, Elias Sterling made a decision that transcended the bounds of his ruthless corporate world. He didn't offer her a massive check, which would have felt like a transaction cheapening Clara's gift. Instead, he offered something infinitely more meaningful, a chance to build the life she deserved, the one Clara would have wished for her. He offered to finance her brother's specialized treatment through his foundation and, more importantly, offered her a meaningful position within the same foundation, using her empathy, her hard-won survival skills, and the story of the kingfisher to help others who felt hopeless. Evelyn, overwhelmed, didn't hesitate. She had spent years carrying the burden of survival, and now, finally, she could carry the torch of salvation, a living connection to the angel who had saved her life. The narrative that began with a necklace of grief now continued as a legacy of grace, proving that the most powerful fortunes are the ones we spend on lifting others. Months later, Evelyn was no longer serving water. She was directing resources, her face vibrant with purpose, her story inspiring everyone she met. The silver kingfisher still rested against her collarbone, but now it was polished by the light of a realized life, a constant, glowing reminder that even the deepest darkness can be illuminated by a single, unexpected act of kindness. The memory of Clara, the generous girl who gave away her most cherished possession, lived on, not in a sterile monument, but in the vibrant, transformed life of Evelyn Hayes. Her greatest struggle was over, and her most profound purpose had begun. All because a CEO recognized a tiny kingfisher on the neck of a tired waitress. If Evelyn's journey and the enduring legacy of Clara's kindness touched your heart, please take a moment to engage with this video. Like it, share it with someone who needs a little hope, and leave a comment below so we know we're making a difference. Special request: before you leave, please comment the word kingfisher below if you believe that sometimes the greatest gifts in life are the unexpected connections we make with people we only meet once. The kingfisher flies on,